Okay, hello everyone. This is Dave Olender, and I am here today to show you how to modify a standard Epicor version 10.1.500.7 pack slip to show an excluded field. We're going to show the invoice comment field. So, all right, so I'm on the Elkover machine server. Just so you know, you might see references to ERMC. They're a customer of mine. They've agreed to let me use their server for this presentation. So, all right, so let me just drill into my pilot environment here. There we go. Okay, so let's start off by taking a look at the field that I'm talking about. So we're going to go into shipping, customer shipment, and I have a pack slip already, IAEUG. I did a quick little mock-up here. And if we take a look at the details for this, the lines, I just put some fictitious numbers in here. But really what we're after is this guy right here, the comments. You can see there are shipping comments, invoice comments, and header comments. So for the invoice comments, you can see I put a comment in here already, pack slip comment. This part was shipped fully assembled. That's for line 1, and line 2. The invoice comment is this part was shipped complete. All right. So if we print this, let's preview this pack slip, and we're going to use the standard report style. Okay, let's look at the whole thing. So you can see this is the standard Epicor pack slip, and we added some comments, but they're not showing up on our form. So how can we do that? How do we get those comments to show up? All right. Well, one of the first things you need to do, I must say note of this, is to find out what table is that and field name is this thing called, right? It's under invoice comments, but what table, what's the field name? And Epicor's given us a really great tool for this. In version 10, it's called field help. So if you go to help and then field help, and then I usually go to just technical details. And if you click on a field, any field, like if you're in the header and you pick, I don't know, the ship via field, it's going to show us that the DB field is shiphead.shipviacode. So back on the lines, if we click on our invoice comment, it's going to show us that we're in the ShipDtl.InvoiceComment, right? So that's the DB field here. So we're like, okay, so we have our target now, right? We know the table and the field name that we need to add to get this to go out to our form. So, all right, so invoice detail, invoice comment. And I think I can just minimize that for now. All right, so the next step is going to be to go into under System Management. Let me close this up a little bit. All right, so under System Management, under Reporting and Report Style, we're going to, this is where things get a little tricky, because we know that the table we're after is called ShipDtl, but it's in the pack slip, which is in the P's. So you'd think, ship detail would be in the S's. No, it's in the P's for pack slip. And there's a number of those kinds of examples throughout Epicor. A lot of them have to do with, legacy things like what Epicor used to call plants are now called sites. And some, they reference some tables now that have different reference. For instance, sales orders. You would think sales orders would be in the S's. It's not. It's in the O's for orders. You would think invoices would be in the I's, but it's not. It's in the A's for AR invoice. So some of this is just kind of intelligent guessing. I don't know of any good guide to show you where things are. Sometimes the table names give you those clues. In this case, it's a little misleading because, as we saw, it's the ship detail table, but the style is called pack slip. So, yeah. So let's pick the pack slip style. And if we open that up, we can see I've got some other stuff that I've done for them. I did an Elk River default and an SSRS version. Looks like I had a crystal reports test here. So, but basically what you're going to want to do, you can ignore all that other stuff, right? All we're going to deal with right now is the standard SSRS. And then I recommend going into actions and do a copy report style. So copy report style is going to create two folder names, the pack slip and the shipping label. And it's going to put them, you can see in the path here, it's under reports, custom reports, and then packing slip. And then, of course, pack slip is the file name. I'll call them files. They're not really that. But so anyways, let's just do the copy. This is a really nice function. We used to have to do this, I used to have to do this manually, where I would download all the RDL files and then upload them into my file, and you had to kind of manually create the style. And so Epicor has, they introduced that in 10.1 something. And it works nice. It's beautiful. So for the description, let's put EUG pack slip. Yeah, that's good enough. All right. Now for the data definition, what I usually do is say right-click, go to Report Data Def. That's going to bring up the standard data definition. Data definition is the place where we define which fields are going to be included in the data set, right, that the report is going to use. So, all right. So now this is a standard system report data definition, and so we can't modify this. So really, what we're going to do here is I'm going to duplicate this report, the RDD, and let's give this the same base. We'll call it pack slip IAEUG. I think I have one out there already, so I'll call it 2. Pack slip. I'll go IA. No, I'm going to go pack slip IAEUG G2. Yeah. Okay, say OK to this. It can take a little while for this to update. Hang in there. It'll get there. Here we go. All right. So if we open this up, you can see it's broken down into tables and labels, and then report relationships. So, the table, if you remember from when we looked in the field help, it was ship detail. And usually what I like to do, just because this Epicor is a little slow to update or refresh the screen, is I'll click on the table above where I want to go, and then kind of wait for the screen to update, and then I'll go to the table that I actually do want to go to, ship detail. All right, so we have the ship detail, and Epicor's done some really nice things along here too. You can do things like exclude all or include all. Those are really nice when you're adding new like new tables. And it used to come in, I believe everything was enabled, and so it was kind of a pain if you wanted to keep things nice and clean and trim. You had to go through and turn everything off. Well, now they've given you these functions where you can just say, yeah, turn everything off, and I'll only turn on the stuff that I want. So you can see from the excluded column here the things that are included and the things that are excluded. So let's go down and find the field that we looked up earlier. And here, invoice comment. And we can see that it's currently excluded. So we're going to want to include that. I wouldn't do the label necessarily. Now, it depends on your situation. If you're multi-country, multi-language kind of thing, then the labels become a really important part of doing any kind of reporting, right? Because you want people to be able to change the language and have the language update with proper labels that represent that language. So if you're not multilingual, then these labels are really, they're not that important. So, like I said, it just depends on the kind of company you have and how many languages you're supporting. So, this is a simple example, so I'm not going to include the exclude label. And there used to be a limitation. Of course, it depends on what version of Epicor you're on. But earlier than 10.1500, there were reports like the AR invoice form that was basically all full. There's a Microsoft limitation of 1,024, hopefully I got that number right, columns per database, per database table. And that's a Microsoft limitation. Well, Epicor was at that limit. And so if you added any extra labels, then you started getting errors and things blew up, and it was not pretty. So, but I believe now from 500 on, they're using a new technique. They're splitting up the labels into multiple tables, and I think they're creating a view or something. I don't know the exact details, but they're So I don't know that we need to be that careful about label, but once bitten, twice shy. So we don't need the label right now, so I'm going to leave it off. Sorry, that's a long explanation for a small item. All right, so let's save our data definition. We've unexcluded the invoice comment, which is that's what we're after, and in our data def. Okay, let's go back to refresh this and data definition. Here's you can see I had one there before, but I got another one. All right, so this is our EUG2 data definition. This is probably a good example to show where you create the report style, if you look carefully, you'll see there's a comma here, and then it looks like it repeats reports, custom reports, but it's actually the shipping label, because this interface allows you to print a pack slip and or a label that goes with it. And so they're using the comma as a delimiter to say, okay, well, that's a separate report for that interface. Not everything has this. You'll see this in a couple places, but not many. So don't be confused by that. We're not going to mess with the label right now. So, and technically, I could just eliminate this. I can just take it out. If I'm going to say, you know what, I'm never going to do a label. So you could remove that. So, and you can always put it back in. It's not a big deal. So. We're not going to mess with the label today, so I'll leave it out for now. So let me spend a couple minutes talking about this sync data set. So that's a really, really dangerous button, and I don't recommend anyone uses that. So I've only when it works, it's a beautiful thing, but when it doesn't work, it'll wreck your stuff. So if you're going to click on that button, you better have some backups. The only place I've seen that where it actually works and it hasn't corrupted my work has been in the BAQ reports. So that seems to work just fine. But for the standard forms, please do not use that button. It's not worth it. So, and really what it does is, or what it's supposed to do is, when you click the sync data set, it's supposed to take that field that we just added to the report, the data definition, and it's supposed to automatically add that to the SSRS report, so you can just drag and drop it onto your form, and boom, you're done. So that's why I say it sounds like a great deal, right? Except that more often than not, it will break your form. And in all likelihood, the sub-forms that go with it too, the sub-reports. So, like I said, it's they got the right idea. They're getting there. They put this in here because people were complaining that you basically had to be a programmer to add a field, this was their response to that, to say, okay, well, we'll make it easier for you to add a field and then onto your form. So, but it's kind of in its infancy. It's like a first iteration or second iteration, and it's not working. And like I said, if you want to try it, go ahead. All I can say is have a backup ready, because you might need it. So, all right. So, where am I? Report style. We got everything. Everybody's happy. Yeah, I think everybody's happy. All right. Let me take a quick view at my notes and see what the next definition. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. So we're kind of done with the setup stuff here. Let's go back to the pack slip. And let's print this bad boy now that it's gonna. Oh, you know what? Let me go back. I did kind of jump ahead there, didn't I? Pack slip. Yeah, let's pretty up that description a little bit. Let's make this IAEU. I'll get it. And pack slip. There we go. Save that, and we'll make it the default, right? So when we go to run our report, that should be the default. All right, so if we do a print, there's our IAEUG pack slip, so that's the right report style. I could pick from one of the others, but we'll let that run. And let's do the preview again. All right, so if we look at this, you're going to see it basically looks exactly like the standard form, because it is. It's really just the standard form that's been copied over. So now the only difference now is that the data definition hopefully outputted our data. So is there, now I'm going to show you, I guess, something that I do just for my own personal a thing, just because I like going into SSMS, right, which is SQL Server Management Studio. That's this guy, and I'm gonna log in. Oh, one thing I forgot to do. Let's double click on the system monitor, and if we look at the reports tab, and I'm going to scooch over to the right and grab this field and bring it back over to here. And then we'll open this up. This is going to, it's going to expose the GUID, right? The graphical user ID guy. I call it GUID. I've heard people pronounce it different ways. Anyways, that's the way I say it. So, and then I usually sort by the most recent at the top. So I always grab this GUID. So, all right, so let's go back to SSMS. Let's open up our list of databases, and under there you'll see a database for, in our case, I'm in the pilot environment. So there's a database here for the SSRS reports. And if we go to the tables, you'll see that there's going to be a whole bunch of tables here listed. So, but what we can do is click on the filter, and then in the contains field, paste in our GUID, and now these are just the tables that were associated with the printout that I just ran, right? So, and this kind of works if you're an old Crystal Reports guy, person. Sorry, you're used to this kind of where Epicor would send data to an XML file, and then it would kind of hand off the task to Crystal, and then Crystal would access that XML file. Well, since version 10 and with SSRS, now it's kind of the same philosophy where Epicor is putting the data rather than to an XML file, which you can change, and you can still use XML, by the way, but we're not. We're going to use the standard. So instead, Epicor sends it to a Microsoft database. So, and then it appends the GUID, to all of the table names. So, and by doing this, they can enforce the archive period, where you can say, I want to hang on to this for a year or a month or something. That comes into play if you're using like a stock status report or something where you're taking kind of a snapshot of where things are. Maybe you have it running at night and it always runs at midnight, and so you can set the archive period for I think a year is the most, but anyways, but you can see that's kind of why they're doing things this way. So it may seem a little awkward, but it's not really once you realize what's going on. It's just it's a whole bunch of numbers, letters and numbers. I'm sure it's hexadecimal. It's a unique ID, and that can hang around, and you can rerun your reports. So, all right. So we've filtered the database by the GUID. So these are all the tables associated with our printout, and the field that we added was in the ship detail. So here's the ship detail table. I right-clicked on that, and then if you left-click on the select top 1000, I know this particular order only has 2 lines, and so 2 lines is correct. And that can become important if you've added a table and then you've set up a join. This is a good place to verify that you've got the join correct, because if you've got too many records or not enough records, remember, we haven't gone into SSRS yet. We're looking at raw data right now. And so let me scroll over to the right, and look at this, invoice comment. There's the field that we added, and we can see that it's in the database now. So we've got Epicor configured correctly, and it did its job. So it's kind of an SSRS issue right now. So, right, we've just confirmed that. And by the way, this is a good chance for you to verify the name and the spelling of the field itself. Now, this one's pretty obvious, right? Invoice comment's the same as invoice comment. But when you start adding some of the lookup fields that have like a calc prefix, we might have some of those here. Yeah, we've got some here. You're not always sure exactly what the field name is going to be. And it's not always going to be the same as what's in the field help. So sometimes it's different, and you do need to get the case correct. So now, like I said, in this case, that I picked invoice comment, it's very straightforward, right? It's exactly the way it looks. But what we've done is we've confirmed that Epicor has done its job, and it's time to move on to SSRS. So, all right, so you're thinking, okay, how do I get into SSRS? Well, I have a shortcut set up right off of my, my Internet Explorer, and you can do that too. But I kind of like to show you how to get it from a base. If you go into your system here, and hopefully I can grab that. This is what it looks like. Reporting services configuration. We'll say OK to that. Log on to our server. There's an item here called Report Manager URL. And I've been at some systems where I couldn't use the internet, this guy directly. I had to go right from here to launch this. And maybe it's the 8080 port number or something. I don't know. But if we click on that, that's going to take us into the SSRS that we need. And I like using details view. It's totally up to you, but So you can see we have two root environments here. I have live and pilot, and those are configured through the admin console, the Epicor admin console. So we've been dealing with pilot, as you saw earlier, and I'm going to drill into pilot. Let's go to reports. If you remember from when we copied the report style, the path was reports, custom reports, and we'll go to custom reports. And then we have packing slip. So here's our form. That's the user I'm logged in as, by the way. So if you click the down arrow next to pack slip and you go to edit in report builder. Now if you haven't loaded report builder, and by the way, I use Report Builder. You could use the SQL data tools, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. For now, I'm using the Report Builder. It's really the easier tool. I think it has a smaller footprint. There are some things that you can do in the data tools, which is it's a subset of the Visual Studio that you really can't do in Report Builder. So, but I think Report Builder does a better job of rendering yeah, it has some other advantages, some benefits. But so anyways, I'll be using Report Builder. It's the simplest, easiest thing to do. Let me take a moment just to explain that in this environment, if I go back one, these things look like folders, and these look like they might be files, and they are files if you download them. All right, if I download this and do a save as, it's going to be an RDL file. It's going to create an RDL file. So then it will actually be a file. But if you search the server for this file name, pack slip, you're not going to find it, right? Because the SSRS reports are kept in another database in SSMS. They're kept in, they're kept here, I believe. This guy, report server. That's where all the reports are actually kept. This is for report data. This is the actual reports themselves. So that thing that looks like a folder isn't really a folder. The thing that looks like a file, it's not really a file. It's a representation of a file. But I'm going to call them that just because, it's just for ease of use and understanding, right? All right, so let's go back into the report builder, and the question becomes, okay, how do I get my field in here? Well, if we open up the data sets, you'll see that there's a number of data sets here. We get the ship head, ship detail, company, report parameter, MISC charges. So now these data set names are really just labels, right? There's no table that has that. But it's not really accurate to call this a ship head table, because what it is a combination. It's an SQL query, so it's a combination of multiple tables. So it can be misleading just to call it ship head. And so you'll see various names for these, and you can even rename these if you like. I don't recommend it because the groupings can be tied to that. But anyways, I just wanted to let you know that these names are not necessarily table names. So, but if we look through the list here, I won't go through everything. I can pretty much tell you the field that we're looking for is not here, right? The invoice comment field, it's not going to be here. So, I should say, well, one thing I do. And normally when I'm doing development work, one of the first things I do is I want to verify that the data set and that the RDL that I've just pulled up match, that they go together. And to do that, I would run this, and then what it's going to do is it's going to prompt me for the GUI ID, which I have in my clipboard. So I'm just going to paste it in there. Let's do a view report, and I usually pick the print layout, right? Because it looks, it does a better job of rendering, I think, especially when you're trying to look for page numbers and stuff. So here I've verified there's our standard form with our data. There's our two lines. Of course, we don't have the invoice comments yet, but All right, so let's go back into the design mode. And so this shiphead ship detail is really where we want to add our field. So to do that, we're going to go into dataset properties, and we have a number of, we've got the query, we've got a field list, we have, you know, options, you do filtering here, you can set up parameters. We're just going to deal with the query at this point. So the data set is going to, or the, I'm sorry, the data source is preset, so you don't want to mess with that. But what we want to do is go into this query. So now the thing is, if you're like Neo from the Matrix, you could probably read this. I personally cannot. I find this really awkward. And so usually what I'll do here, guys, is I'll just do a Control A to highlight everything, and then a Control C to copy it, and then I'll just kind of plunk it into Notepad++. So, and now I know it still looks like a big jumble of stuff, but let me do a little explaining here. So if you just kind of zoom down to the bottom where we've got the from, this is a big select statement, right? For those SQL gurus out there, it's a big select statement where the very first, you know, the upper portion is really just a list of field names separated by commas. That's really all it is. So, and what you're going to see is that all of these field names are prefixed by some kind of weird T1. What's that T1? What's T2? You know, what's a T3? Well, if we come down to this section here where it's telling you what the field names are, what's going on here is that you're saying, okay, I want to select all of these fields from, and then you're going to say, in this case, ship head. That's one of our tables. Be very careful when you say that, by the way. And then you can see what's happening here. They're concatenating the GUID, right? They're saying use shiphead underscore, and then they're adding the GUID. And then this is an SQL thing where this T1 is called an alias. So what they're saying is that rather than trying to use this whole long name, shiphead underscore with the whole table GUID ID for every single one of the fields that you've got, if you just assign it an alias, T1, then SQL knows that T1 dot field name means shiphead underscore GUID and then the field name, right? So T1, T2, T3. All right, so this is relevant because the field that we want to add, if you remember, is under ShipDtl. And ShipDtl has an alias of T2. So, so what I try to do is find like the last T2 just before T3. And I think that's this guy right here, I think. And to be honest with you, it doesn't really matter the order here. You can put this anywhere. You can put it at the very end. But I try to group things because they're sort of naturally organized this way by Epicor, and I just thought, well, let's keep things organized. So, all right, so we know we want a T2, and then we have to put in the field name, which was invoice. Gotta spell it right. InvoiceComment, and then a comma afterwards, and then I would go space too. So that comma is really important. As I said, this is case sensitive, so be real careful with your typing. If you mess something up here, it's, yeah, you can mess up the whole query. All right, so let's do the Control A again here in Notepad++. Do a Control C to do the copy, and then let's go back to our big select query, and we are going to paste in. Well, that didn't work very well, did it? Let's try this again. Pick all that, Control C, and let's go back up to the top. Yep, there's our select equals. Okay. Hopefully that's good. All right, so now we need to, we've added that to our query, right? But now we need to add the field. So we're going to add a query field, and it's going to be invoice comment. Invoice comment. So the one thing I will tell you is that you cannot duplicate a name here. So if there's more than one place that you can have an invoice comment, and which in this case there is, you could have an invoice comment at the sales order level, and you could have the same invoice comment field at the pack slip level. So if that was the case, what I would do is I would prefix this with an alias of its own, and I would say ShipDtl invoice underscore invoice comment, or order detail invoice comment, that kind of thing. So but we don't need that. And now she shows up down here as a field. So it's like, okay, all right. So at this point, even before I add anything, what I like to do is let's make sure this bad boy runs. Oops, didn't want to do that. I need my GUID. So let me go back and get that. And we'll put that in there. And okay, yep, it still runs. So you'd be surprised how many times you go to do just those few steps and you've got a comma in the wrong place, or an extra, or maybe it's a period instead of a comma, or you spelled the field name wrong. You'll get an error when you try to preview, and that's by doing that, I'm just kind of confirming that up to this point things look okay. So all right, let me see where I am on my list here. Yeah, okay. All right, so the next step is going to be to add the field to our form. So in this case, it's right here. So, and I can get into this a little bit later, but basically we're looking at a tablix, which is a table, and I'm looking at a table row. And is this the right one? Yeah, I think that's the right one. Yeah. Yep, this is it. All right. So this is my row, and you can see, sorry, I got the hiccups. I've got the little double arrow here, so I'm going to take this guy and make him a little bit bigger. It's exaggerated, but I'm not going to worry too much about putting lipstick on. So let's just take our invoice comment, click and drag that, put that into this space, and we'll bring that over. Oops. Let's click this guy, go into expression, take out the first, and we can talk about that another time, why we don't need that, actually why you don't want that here. Yeah, you know what, just to make things pop, let's go to border and we'll just go with an outline. Give me an outline. All right, let's save it. Let's run it. Fingers crossed. That happens a lot. Just do a refresh and do a preview. And let me zoom out. There we go. There's our pack slip, and there's our 2 lines. So that's pretty much it. We'll save it, and now if we go back to Epicor, oh, I minimized the wrong thing there. There we go. Can I go back to, yeah, there's my pack slip. Let's preview this guy. Print. We still got it. We have our new report style. Let's do a print preview. And drum roll. Let's take it back up. And there we go. Standard pack slip. And now we've got our invoice comments that are now printing on the pack slip, and of course they will print on the invoice as well. So, all right, well, I'll say no to that. That's pretty much it, other than, you know what, I'm going to add one little, I have just a little bit of time left over, so let me do a backup, right? So I'll get rid of that. So if I go into report style, let's do that pack slip again. Okay, there we go. So if we go to actions, Epicor has given us kind of a cool little thing called download SSRS report. So it says, okay, where do you want to put this? Yeah, do I have one here already. Can I delete that? Yeah. Actually, I think I need a reports folder. Oh. Yeah, let's go back to downloads, make a new folder, we'll call it reports. Alright, so I'm going to pick the reports folder and say OK. The following reports were downloaded. So if we go to look at that, go to downloads, reports, custom reports, pack slip, there's the RDLs. And you can see here, these are actual, now these files you can double click on, and they're really just XML. The RDL files are XML files. So, if you're really good at XML, you can go in and I've actually had to go in here to delete embedded images. If you import an image into your SSRS report, and then you decide, I don't need that image anymore. It just kind of hangs around. There's really no way to get rid of it that I know of. And so I've gone into the RDL here, and then you can find that image and then delete it, and then re-upload the RDL into SSRS, and that image will be gone, and your file size will go down too. So there are times when you may want to go in here, or maybe it's referencing a field that you just can't find. This is a good place to do that. You just do a find and look for the field name, and then you get some clues, or you can make some changes. You can say, okay, you're not going to be tiny and white anymore. You're going to be big and red, and that way when you upload it, that it'll pop for you. It'll stick out and say, oh yeah, there it is, right? Because sometimes they use these tiny little fields for reasons that we can talk about later. But so anyways, I like keeping an offline backup of the system, just in case things get lost or somebody overwrites the work that you've done. It's a good way to kind of back up your work. So I'm a big fan of backups. I've never regretted having a backup. So you might regret the time it takes to make backups sometimes, but boy, once you got them, you never regret having them. So, all right, that's basically it for the SSRS and how to add a field. And that's it for now. So, all right, thanks for listening, and I'm gonna post this up on YouTube. Take care, everyone.